Welcome to Linkurious Enterprise 2.9 presentation. My name is Marilyn. I'm head of customer success at Linkurious. And today I'm with Jocelyn, our head of product.
Hi, everyone.
The purpose of this presentation is to give you an overview of the features that we have brought to Linkurious Enterprise in the latest version, the 2.9, which is currently available in beta. And you can download it on our download center. At the end of the presentation, there will be a Q&A session. You can type your questions anytime in the chat, and I will be happy to read them for you. So just a quick word first, before we actually get started. For those who don't know, maybe, Linkurious Enterprise is a graph visualization and analysis platform which allows large teams of analysts to easily make sense of their complex data and detect suspicious activities as they happen. There are plenty of different use cases for our product, but we often see it used for threat detection, such as areas such as fraud, anti-money laundering, or cybersecurity. And now it's time to get started with 2.9 presentation. Jocelyn, it's your turn.
All right, hi everyone. So today we're going to cover what was delivered during the 2.9 with the 2.9 version. We are going to cover three main topics: property key access rights, custom actions, and plugins. Also, there are other smaller enhancements in the version 2.9, and I invite you to read the 2.9 release blog post to know more about that. In particular, if some of your users are using the advanced search syntax in the search bar, that's pretty specific and only, I would guess, for pretty advanced users. But if they use it with Elasticsearch to search for and filter search on dates and numbers, there might be a minor impact for them. So yeah, I would just invite you to go read about that in the 2.9 release blog post, as I won't be talking about that today. So let's get started with the first topic, property key access rights. First, a quick reminder about the standard access rights, meaning the access rights as they are right now. In that standard mode, you can create groups of users. And for each group, you can grant permission on the data based on categories and types, and on node categories and edge types. So let's say that you have company category. You can give to the users of a specific group 4 different permissions. You could give them no access, meaning that they cannot search and they cannot display any node from the company category. You can give them read permission, in which case they can search and display. You can give them write permission, in which case they can edit existing company nodes, and they can create new company nodes. And the last level of permission is delete. And for the groups that have a delete permission, users of those groups can obviously delete nodes or edges of that category or of that type. So that's how it is for standard access rights. Some customer needs that are not covered by this standard mode is the ability to first to deny access to specific properties. Let's say that we're taking the example of a company node. You want your users to have access to most of the properties, but maybe some of them are sensitive, and so you want to hide them. So you want your users, the users of a specific group to have access to the company category, but not you want to deny access to specific properties. The other use case we have is that you want to give an editing capability to specific properties only. Let's say that, for example, there is a status for your company, and you have a specific group of users that should be able to update this status, maybe to set it to bankrupt or to closed, or whatever status you want to have, but you want them to be able to edit only this single property. So these are two use cases that we wanted to cover, and that property key access rights allows us to cover. So during the demo, I'm gonna first show you how to create a group in the standard access right mode, so as it is right now. So for a reminder, I'll show you then how to enable property key access right, and finally I'll show you how to create a group when property key access rights are enabled, to see the difference with how it is right now. So let's get started. Let me here get back to the dashboard. We'll get back to that in just a moment. And so, as you know, you can go and create users and groups in this users and groups menu here. Switching to groups, and I'm going to create a group. And you might already notice that the look and feel of the screens here have changed a bit. Functionally, they are very much the same, but I wanted to show that there is a different look and feel. So let's create a group, and we can call it webinar group. Here you have a couple of permissions related to queries, to custom actions, to alerts, and some admin related permissions. These are the same as they used to be. What will be of interest to us for the property access right is this second part. And you can see here, for when you are in standard access rights, that you have a list of all the node categories and a list of all the edge types. And for each node category or edge type, you can set a permission. So here by default, they are all set to none, so no access. You can change it to read, edit, or create and delete. And you might notice, I wanted to highlight one thing. You might notice here that we made a change, that you have no access, read, that's the same as it was before, but now it's not write, but edit. And here it's not just delete, but create and delete. So what we did is that the write permission has been split between the edit that remains here and the create that is moved to the upper permission level. So yeah, there is this small change here, and here is how you can change the permissions. And this is very much the same as it used to be. So I'm going to show you now how to enable property key access right and how to create a group in property key access right mode, and how this is going to be different from what it is right now. So we are back to our screen here, a group screen, and you can see in the top right corner, property key access rights off. If I click on it, I can switch it on. So I'm going to try to do that. And here I have a warning telling me that I should be I should have a strict mode schema here. So I'm going to go to the schema page. Here we are. And for those who are not familiar, the schema was released in the previous version in 2.8. So I would advise that you go back to the 2.8 webinar to know more and learn more about the schema. I'm not going to cover that as part of today's webinar. And you can see that indeed here we are in partial schema. And so I will need to switch to strict mode. I got this small warning because I didn't take the time to declare all the properties on my on my different categories and types. But I'm going to ignore it for now because it's not going to alter the demo. So here it is. I switched to strict schema, and now I'm going to go back to users and groups. And here I can now switch it on, and I'm going to confirm, and here I am. Property key access right is now on. So last step, I'm going to create a group. So first screen remains the same. And I'm going to create this webinar group, give it a name, webinar group. And I'm going to step 2. And as you can see now, we have a different layout for this second screen. We have node categories and edge types on the left-hand side. And if I click on a given category, you'll see on the right-hand side, the first part, which is very much the same as it used to be with an access right for the category. But if you scroll down, you'll see that you have also access right for each property. For each property, you can have no access, read, or edit. Right now, this is not, you see, this is not, I'm trying to click here, but this is disabled because the category right is no access. Let's say that for this address category, I want the nodes to be editable. So I'm going to click edit here. If I scroll down, now I can see that all my properties are editable. But let's say that, as I mentioned, that I want that I have some of the properties. Let's say these 3 last properties are sensitive properties. So I'm going to actually hide them from or deny access to this group for these properties. I'm going to click no access here on these 3 properties. And let's say now that I want to let them edit latitude and longitude. Let's say that this group of people has specific knowledge about or a specific task around updating latitudes and longitudes. But I don't want them to mess with city and country information that I know are all right and that we shouldn't be edited by these people. So I can here change the permission for city and country to read. And well, here we are. I mean, you can do that for every single category if you need to. And you then just save, and that's it. So that's basically it. I'm gonna just remove all. I'm gonna switch back to partial mode. That's just for the next demos I have to do. And I'm actually done with the demo. So for a quick recap, beware that we changed permission levels. As I mentioned, we split the write permission into edit and create. So if you have created custom groups, please make sure that your users will not be impacted. And if they are, just update your groups accordingly. In order to access property key access right mode, you need to have a strict schema. And the benefits are that you can now deny access to some properties or allow editing only on selected properties. So let's move on to the second item, which are custom actions. Recurring customer need is to be able to open an app from a visualization, and more specifically, to be able to open, for example, a company from its node into a third-party application. Here could be Salesforce. So basically, there is one way to do that right now, to be able to jump from the workspace in Linkurious Enterprise to a third-party application. And the way to do that right now is to create a property that contains the URL to that third-party application. The limit with that is that you have to create this property either during the pre-processing step, meaning that before before importing data into your database, or once in the database, you can run a job to update your data and add this kind of URLs. Thing is that it's not very flexible, and because you have to change your pre-processing step, or you have to change jobs on the database side. So we aimed at providing a more flexible way to do the same kind of thing. So I'm gonna switch to the demo, and I'm gonna show you how we can open in Wikipedia some specific items using a custom action, and then I'll show you how to create a custom action of your own. Oh, sorry. So let's go with the demo. It's going to be a very simple one. So here we have city Montpellier. I mean, basically it's an address node, and yeah, that's a city in France. And let's say that we want to check out this city within Wikipedia. One way to do that, as we mentioned, would be to create a URL. And as you understand, this is, we wanted to offer some other way to do the same kind of thing. So now, if I right-click on Montpellier, you'll see that the menu, the context menu, has changed a bit, because you now have a new item here called custom actions. And here in my sublist, I have a custom action that I created myself, which is show in Wikipedia. So I'm gonna click on it, and this is gonna open a Wikipedia page with the URL pointing to Montpellier. So yeah, that's actually what I was looking for. And to do that, I don't need this property. Basically, I can just, here I have some editing rights. I can just, delete this, and this custom action is still gonna work. I mean, it's totally independent from this URL properties that I have there. All right. So I'm gonna, second step, I'm gonna show you how to create such custom action. Because as long as you have the permission, so in the group, as I showed earlier, there is a permission regarding custom actions. If you are entitled to create custom actions, then you will see in the menu here this option, manage custom actions. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to see the list of custom actions that are available to me right now. So here are all the custom actions available to me. I can see some of them are my own, private, not shared. Some are shared with me, and you have the name. So here we can find the show in Wikipedia custom action that I used in my example. Let's have a look at that. So basically, this is a form used to create or edit a custom action. You have a name, you have a description, you can share it, and the main part of it is this, the URL template. A URL template is made of URL fragments, like this one, and variables. If you already know about create templates, this is going to ring a bell because indeed this is very similar to what you will find in create templates. So here the variable is about for the node that has been clicked, we will retrieve the city property value and input that into this URL. That's how we end up with this full URL with ending with Montpellier, because Montpellier is stored in the city property of the address node that I have in my example. So I'm not going to tell you much more about how to create URL templates because there is a whole syntax here that you can actually discover by reading the documentation, and it's not the point today to actually show you all the possibilities in terms of URL templates. But if you're interested, I totally encourage you to go to the documentation and check this out. So let's recap about custom actions. Custom actions are made of URL templates, which are I would say a collection of URL fragments and variables. You can use various variable types. Among them are the node or the node set, meaning that you can use a single node or a selection of nodes. And you can use as well edges, or like in terms of single edge or a selection of edges. I didn't show that, but you can also add restrictions on the node category or edge type on which specific custom actions are available. So this is all explained in the documentation if you're interested. Also, you can share custom actions with other users. So that's it for custom actions. And so I'm going to talk to you now about plugins. We have frequent customer need, which is to be able to integrate Linkurious Enterprise with existing processes and tools. And also, we are asked about the ability to extend the product. Right now, what you can do and what customers already do is leveraging the API from Linkurious Enterprise, which is quite extensive. But when using the API, you may have to build an app, or at least do some custom development. Then you also need to host the application, and you need to build an authentication and authorization layer for your application. With plugins, we aim at removing the last two constraints and ease on the first one, ease things on the first one. So basically what we are delivering in 2.9 is the plugin feature itself, so the ability to create plugins. And plugins are actually web applications that are hosted on Linkurious Enterprise and that share the authentication layer from Linkurious Enterprise. We are also releasing one plugin that we name Data Table plugin. This plugin is going to be, or could be for you, a boilerplate to build your own plugin to help you get started. But also it has value in on its own, since it allows to display data as a table. So I'm gonna do a quick demo, and I'm gonna show you how to use specifically this data table plugin. The example I'm gonna use is one where we have two bank accounts with multiple transactions in between these two accounts. In such context, when you have multiple parallel edges, the visualization may become very hard to read because it creates a lot of noise when you have lots of parallel edges between two nodes. So what we advise to do usually to our clients is to create an aggregate edge in the database so that one can display this aggregate edge in the visualization instead of displaying all the parallel edges. The issue might come when you want to actually display the full details of individual transactions. And that's where the data table plugin may come handy. So let me show you that. Sorry, that's this. So let's get back to the dashboard, and I'm going to open this example. So I mentioned two bank accounts that are related to two separate persons. So we have persons, bank accounts, and these two bank accounts have multiple connected by multiple transactions. So as I said, what we did is that we created this aggregate in the database, and here it is displayed in this visualization. If I click on it, well, when we created this aggregate in the database, we decided to store the aggregate amount of the transaction, of all transactions. And actually, this one stands for seven separate transactions. So it means that in the database, we have these 7 transactions plus this aggregate. Thing is, I could here display all the individual transaction. You know, if I do here, if I do this, here you can see now I can see the full details of my parallel edges. So I can click on each of them and have a look at all of them. But here we have only 7 of them. Let's say that if you have more than that, it really becomes an issue to actually, you know, click and actually display and then click on each of them. So what we wanted is to be able to display a list of these edges in a tabular format. Here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on, right click on the edge, go to custom action, and I have this custom action aggregate edge details. I'm going to click on it. And we have this new page that is being displayed with a table that contains the 7 transactions. So the full details of my aggregate. So this is actually the page that we created within the plugin. That's the plugin, or at least that's the front end part of the plugin. So we have this table, and I'm going to mention 2 other things that we added as part of this plugin. You can edit which columns are visible in the table. So here you might want to remove the ID, and here it is. You know, you have now only these 5 columns without the ID, and you may as well export as a CSV. So this is a data table plugin. If you want to use it, you actually can download it and install it on Linkurious Enterprise version 2.9. And it requires a bit of configuration. I'm not going to go into the full detail here, but basically it's ready for you to use. I'm going to go back to the presentation, and here I'm gonna give you more examples of what can be done with plugins. So we just had a look at how to display data as a table. You may want to display a selection of nodes or edges, or you may want to display the result of any query template. And you may do that by doing a right click on the node, click a custom action, and open the plugin. The second example here of what could be done with plugins would be how to import a file, let's say a CSV file. Let's say that you want to manually import a CSV file within your database, that could be Neo4j, and you don't want to do that running a script or Cypher script, or have to do with any backend side thing. You could provide your users with a plugin that would display in the browser some kind of file importer wizard. This is like an image of what you can do with when you import a CSV file in Excel. So your plugin would load and process the data, and then it will call on the Linkurious API to actually import the data in the database. As an option, you could always display also the statistics about this importation within the plugin. At the end of it, maybe have some success and failure rates on your importation. A third example now would be how to create a report. Here I'm going to take, for example, the suspicious activity report that financial institutions need to file to their authority when they identify some suspicious activity. But that could be any kind of report, depending on your line of business. So the process here would be, for example, to right-click on a company, find the custom action related to the plugin, and click on it. And here we could have a plugin that would create, use report template. Let's say that you provided some, could be a Word, but maybe it could be an HTML report template, or any kind of template, whatever the language you use to encode it, but you provided a template, and the plugin would collect records from another database, create the charts, and assemble the report based on the template. That's something that would be doable, I would say. Basically, go fetch some data, either in your graph database or in some other database, and process this data, create some charts, create some data views, I would say, and put them into specific places in a report template, so that at the end you have your sorry, there's a mistake here, but you would have your reports that you can download and send to whoever you need as a result. Okay, so fourth example, a bit more complicated. Let's say that you want to do some data enrichment. And here I'm going to take the example of the ultimate beneficial owners that financial institutions sometimes need to retrieve. So UBOs are, for those who are not familiar, are basically similar to shareholders. So let's say that you have in your visualization a company, and you need to know who are the shareholders of this company. You probably have a contract with some data provider. You may know some of them, like Dun & Bradstreet, Thomson Reuters, or LexisNexis. There are many more of them depending on your line of business, but these are providers that offer an API that you can query. So let's say that you would right click on this node and the plugin would go and query the API from this one of these data provider to retrieve the data and display the results. After you have, as a user, after you have reviewed the results, you could select some of them and decide that you're going to import them in your database and that you are going to add them to the visualization. Right now, and we'll see that's one of the limitation, the current limitation of the plugins, and we may address that in the future depending on the use cases you are bringing us. But right now, to do that, you would have to call the API to add nodes to the visualization you are starting from in the backend, and you would have to reopen this visualization to see the change. We won't be able to, so basically we would end up having two tabs, one with this visualization and one with this one, because right now we are not yet able to update a visualization live. So you would have to go in two steps. That's another example. And I have a last one, simple one. Let's say that you want to check something in your visualization against a blacklist. This blacklist coming as, I don't know, CSV file or Excel file or whatever. You may create a plugin for that. So let's say that this Acme corporation, you want to know if it's part of a watch list. So you can right click on it and launch a plugin. This plugin, in this plugin, you will find the list of companies that are on this watch list. So you will store the watch list in the plugin. Or you could have it as a, some data providers are also providing watch lists. So you could as well query through an API, but that's another option. And once you have matched this Acme company against the watch list, you can just display the results and say, if it's matching one or several records. So let's have a quick recap about this plugin feature. So basically, first, a plugin is an application that is hosted by Linkurious Enterprise. It has shared authentication with Linkurious Enterprise. And here I introduced some capabilities, and here my imagination is more the limit than what can be done. So basic things that you could do using a plugin is that you could import a file, you could connect to another system, you can exchange and process data, you can create documents. This all depends on your use cases, I would say. You can combine that with custom actions to trigger them from within visualization. And the one limit, or I would say one of the limits that we have right now, and keep in mind that it's just a V1 and we may iterate on this plugin feature in the future based on your feedbacks. But right now we cannot modify Linkurious UI or refresh or update, a visualization based on inputs from the plugin. So basically, that means that you cannot add buttons or you cannot create specific pop-ups or forms or whatever within Linkurious Enterprise. All right, so we are done for what's in 2.9, and here a quick word about what's coming next. The first thing we're going to work on is a connector to Neo4j v4 that was released a couple of weeks ago, and we have already people asking about that and when that will be available. We are thinking about this is basically our first focus after 2.9, and we have an ETA for July, but there might totally be a good surprise, because we are still looking in a Neo4j v4 specifications. So this may end up being quicker than July, but I won't make any promises on that. Second thing that we're going to release is edge grouping. So basically the ability within Linkurious Enterprise, within the visualization, to dynamically group parallel edges. And the third item will be the ability to expand more selectively and basically expand based on the property value.